And good evening, everyone. This is amateur meteorologist Cameron Fry coming at you with a special winter weather briefing. Tonight, we're going to talk about what to expect with Winter Storm Hunter, which is set to impact West and Middle Tennessee January 12th through 13th. We'll also talk about how much rain, ice, and snow we can expect, the timing of the storm, and we'll look beyond the weekend threat and into next week and see if there's any other chances for snow as well. All right, let's start by defining our winter storm threat zones. As you can see, the majority of Middle and West Tennessee are in a highest risk zone where significant amounts of snow and ice are possible. Key word, possible. For those of you in East Tennessee, you're in a low risk zone. This may not be the storm for you, but that doesn't mean you can't see wraparound snow on the tail end. All right, let's check out the GFS and NAM radar animation loops. We'll start with the 12Z, continue on with the 18Z, and then contrast them. So we'll start with the 12Z GFS, and we note that in the days leading up to the event, we have some quiet and mild days. You can note the red isotherms rising, indicative of increasing temperatures ahead of the system. I wouldn't be surprised if temperatures topped out in the mid to upper 60s on Thursday. We're definitely going to have a spring preview before the hammer falls, that hammer being the cold front that's approaching us from the west. Now, we're still monitoring the situation as far as the timing, but what we do know is that the front is going to pull down some cold, potent air that interacts with the mild air ahead of the front, in turn producing a wave of low pressure that develops around Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and tracks it just to our south. Now, that's a key component to this entire system. For those of you who want snow in Middle Tennessee, you want that low tracking just to our south and east. And based on latest trends, it looks more likely that the low will pass to our south and east instead of right overhead. All right, and looking at the 12Z NAM, we note rain quickly turning over into a period of mixed precipitation. I don't really buy the 12Z run just because I think that the rain will turn over to snow more quickly. Yes, there will be a band of mixed precipitation, sleet, maybe freezing rain, but I don't think it's going to last as long as the 12Z NAM suggests. By the time we get into early Saturday, the precipitation should be all snow, and you note the heavier band of snow setting up around the land between the lakes, southeastward on I-24, heading towards Nashville, but just staying just to the northwest of Metro. All right, let's look at the 18Z NAM, where we see the low tracking further to our south before cutting along the plateau just west of the Appalachians. We see a deeper, stronger, more tightly wound system as evident by its comma shape there with the rain extending all the way into the deep southern Gulf. We note a thinner, briefer period of mixed precipitation, which I believe is more accurate. And then check out those darker shades of blue. That is indicative of a deformation band perhaps setting up in the western third of the state, maybe as far east as the Tennessee River. And a deformation zone, for those who don't know, is basically an area where there's greater convergence at the surface, air coming together, which if you could accelerate that air, it in turn enhances vertical motion. And as we've talked about in other briefings, if you can accelerate the rate of vertical motion, usually that leads to heavier precipitation. So it's going to be interesting to note where that deformation band sets up and how close it gets to those who live along 65. All right, the 12Z GFS Snow Totals. You could see a widespread area of 1 to 2 inches of snow with a bullseye of 3 along the Kentucky-Tennessee border around Franklin there. Zooming in closer, you can see there's going to be some heavier snowfall up in Kentucky, no way about it. While I'm tempted to say this map is more believable based on Climo, I don't think it's taking into consideration the deformation band we were talking about. I do believe we're going to see more purple on this map wherever that band sets up in western Tennessee and western Kentucky. That could shift, of course, because if the low tracks to our southeast just by 50, 75 miles, that shifts the deformation band. However, the point of the 12Z GFS is the widespread range of accumulated snowfall. And you look at the GFS ensemble, and you could see almost all the members put down at least an inch of snow, which, as I'm putting this together, the latest area forecast discussion issued by the National Weather Service, they actually mentioned 1 to 2 inches of snow for Nashville. Not set in stone, but based on all the guidance that's come in today, it's a pretty interesting move from the National Weather Service to give that type of indication 3 days out. But yeah, you could see by the ensemble members, some produce amounts near a foot. I think that's a little too bold, but someone in Tennessee, I believe, is going to get crushed by this storm. All right, so let's look at the NAM. I know we were looking at this earlier, but this gives you a different idea of what we're looking at around 500 millibars. And you could see a very tightly wound system. We're looking at I believe the last 2 runs, and you can see how both of them have that low to our south and east. Speaking on behalf of Nashville, and that's a very important observation. If that trend holds, that increases the odds of the majority of precip that falls being frozen. All right, looking at NAM snow totals, the first thing that stands out to me is how it better captures the deformation band compared to the GFS, with deep snow extending far south into the northern half of Mississippi, a couple bullseyes around Jackson, another one up in central Indiana. But really, I want to emphasize the fact that we're still in the pattern recognition stage. We're not trying to nail down exact amounts. We're simply looking at what the trends are telling us. And I know it's easy to get excited. We see the 18Z NAM, and we see an 18-inch sleet snow bullseye over Madison, Henderson, and Carroll counties. However, I caution you, don't take these maps verbatim. Instead, take them with a huge grain of salt. Just accept the fact that the signal is there, that someone in West and Middle Tennessee is going to get crushed. Now, I say crushed, I just mean that, an amount of snow that's greater than what's being forecasted. All right, let's look at the Euro. And again, we note the trends of the day. 0Z last night had a more western solution. It kept the majority of big snow to our north and west, with a lot of areas in Middle Tennessee just getting an inch or less. But the 12Z came out around noon today, and boy, did it shift this sucker east. We see a more similar solution to the 12Z GFS, which is great. We're starting to see consistency. The low is still to our south and moving just to our east. It's not too far to the picture to keep us in dry air, but it's not right overhead or to our northwest to keep us in the warm sector, so that is good. Looking at the 12Z Euro, we see some similarities to the last couple runs of the GFS and NAM, in the sense we see those darker blues invading most of west and middle Tennessee, with that deformation band extending southward from southern Indiana down into the land between the lakes region, where that deformation band sets up, indicative of who sees the most snow. Concerning 12Z Euro amounts, we note the run is pretty bullish on snow totals, especially when you get west of 65 over the land between the lakes. You see evidence of that deformation band setting up. Now, as we talked about with the NAM, it's important not to take these amounts at face value. Honestly, I look at this map and I automatically divide everything in half or even 2/3 to set my expectations. However, it's worth noting that there's going to be a portion of our viewing area that sees more snow than forecast, and that's going to be indicative of where that deformation band sets up. But as you can see, a lot of us come Friday night, Saturday morning are going to see flakes, and flakes sticking to the ground. How much? Devil's in the details. But based on the signals that the GFS, the NAM, and now the Euro are showing, having come in better agreement today, a couple inches is definitely on the table. And when we compare the 0Z Euro from last night to the 12Z Euro from today, we note how the precip shield has shifted to the south and east, since the low track has shifted to the south and east. And if this is correct, then the majority of our viewing area will see multiple inches of snow, no doubt about it, with higher amounts, of course, in the favorable locations up in Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. And now the WPC guys have taken note of that deformation band and shifted their slight risk zone, in this case a slight risk being an area of 10% probability of 4 inches or more of snow. This includes the Tennessee River border counties, flirting with the Kentucky-Tennessee border counties in the northwest portion of the mid-state. As always, we shall see, but anytime you're in close proximity to a slight risk, you got to like your chances of seeing a couple inches of snow blanket the ground. Looking ahead to next week, we see evidence of a second wintry system impacting west and middle Tennessee for Monday and Tuesday. Now, I'll caution you once again, we don't know the details with Hunter. As mentioned, you take the track and the amounts with a grain of salt, so obviously we got to take this with even more salt. But just know that the signal is there that whatever snow falls Friday and Saturday, we could add to that Monday, Tuesday, assuming that there's still some snowpack left on the ground. But that wraps up tonight's winter weather briefing. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave them below or send me a personal message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, real quick, I didn't really go into detail about the timing of precipitation on Friday. Honestly, I'm still looking at that. I think the rain will move in during the morning hours on Friday, perhaps around lunchtime, with the changeover to snow occurring in the afternoon evening hours. That does impact the commute and the morning area forecast discussion coming out of the National Weather Service in Nashville mentioned that the commute on Friday could be tricky. That is the PM commute, not the AM commute. So we'll have to watch the timing there. I would have a backup plan in mind if you need to leave work early. If schools don't shut down early, it may be good to kind of see what the superintendents are thinking. So again, it's going to be an interesting day on Friday, no doubt about it. But everyone should be all snow late Friday, and whatever falls Saturday should also be in the form of snow. We're not going to see a changeover back to sleet or rain during the day on Saturday as temps plummet down to the 20s. So again, I'm keeping my eye out on the afternoon and evening time frame of Friday when we see that rain turn over to a brief period of sleet and then snow. We'll keep you tuned. This is amateur meteorologist Cameron Fry signing off. Have a wonderful Tuesday night and rest of the week, and I will catch you on the fry. Peace.